Hello, buddy. It's Wyvern here. Back. Yes, I am back with some more Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, I was actually in the process of moving and have only just now finally sort of settled down. I got all my computer stuff set up and am finally sort of have a bit of time to actually play the game a bit and actually do some recording. I've been really busy with work, been really busy with moving, so just haven't really had the time, unfortunately. But easing back into the game, just trying to shake off the rust a little bit, and playing some fun, friendly games here. And hopefully you guys do enjoy some of this content that I've got coming up for you all. So this game here, it's good old Brettonia versus Wood Elves, the classic terror matchup for the Woodies. And in this game, it was actually a bit of a friendly matchup. Ran into Alacrity, who wanted to try out a fun Wood Elf build and see how it would work out against Brettonia. Obviously, this is one of those matchups that is tough to crack. It's very difficult for the Wood Elves, especially on a map like this, on Central Chaos Waste, where you just don't have room to hide. There's no trees to tree blob or threaten a tree blob. And that, of course, means that Brettonia can commit fully to those wide enveloping tactics and really try to swarm you with sheer numbers. So as we can see here, the numbers are definitely not on the Wood Elf side. They're outnumbered about 3-1. But Alacrity did have a very cool build here, and I wanted to show it off and talk about this matchup a little bit as we do ease back into the game. And going to the comms here. Now, the build here that I'm running as Brettonia is, for me, a relatively conventional build. I personally love the Fey Enchantress in this matchup. A few reasons for that. One, she's very, very beefy against the Wood Elves. She's got very high magic resist on Seal of Our Own. She's also got missile resistance. So against Glady or Waystalker Sniper Fire, she's basically invulnerable. She's a small target, so pretty easy to dodge Waywatcher Fire and that sort of thing. And with magic resist, she can shrug off Treemen. She can shrug off, of course, Forest Dragons and units like the Wild Hunters of Kurnus, while simultaneously applying that drain effect, that Mortis Engine aura, and melting away the low HP of those Wood Elf infantry units that are usually supporting the trees. Besides that, of course, we did bring some Earthblood and Shield of Thorns. She is a nice support caster with the Lore of Life. She's very, very potent in that sense. We've got Arcane Conduit for Winds of Magic. Favor the Fae boosts the unit's sustained combat stats with that plus 40 melee attack. And then you do have Chalice Potions, which can be used to bombard a pocket. Not the most amazing ability ever by any stretch of the imagination. I know a lot of people are fond of just not bringing it at all, but it can be fun, and you can occasionally nuke a blob with it. Besides that, this build is very, very wide. We're just looking to swarm the Woodies. 5 units of Peasant Mob are covering all angles, acting as a buffer against arrows as well as enemy cav charges. 5 Men-at-Arms with Shields make up the main front line. These guys will trade very efficiently with units like Eternal Guard for their cost, and otherwise they just provide a sort of constant front line. They've got those silver shields so they can soak a lot of fire, and they basically provide a wall that your knights can always fall back to, and they can just apply constant pressure, or otherwise bog down if you're putting one with some dryads or units like that. Just bog them down for a good amount of time, thanks to that respectable, if not amazing, melee defense of 34. Now, besides that, we do have a small firing line, some peasant bows with fire arrows, as well as pox arrows. We had a little bit of money left over, so I went with some fire arrows. Great for whittling down trees, potent against Waste Watchers if you can actually get into range, and good for zoning away units like Sisters of the Thorn and Glade Riders, which you will occasionally see, especially Glade Riders with Hagbane tips. Now they have decent AP. You'll oftentimes see them being used to pepper you down, and in those situations, peasant bows can be a good zoning tool to deal with one of those threats. And besides that, of course, the main threat here, a horde of cavalry. We've got Grail Guardians, great anchor unit, protects the Fey Enchantress, and while she Mortis Engines away, will beat the snot out of almost every Wood Elf unit in a straight up fight, and they just provide a constant grinding tool that is very, very difficult for the Wood Elves to remove from the field. Behind them, single unit of Grail Knights. They're offensive lance-armed brethren, and these guys are really just devastating. With their immunity to vigor, they can really outlast the Wood Elves in the long run. They can charge down their cavalry and decimate them due to their very high charge bonus, magic damage, and bonus versus large. And then on the flanks, we do have a bit of a motley crew. We've got Defenders of the Fluted Lead. Those silver shields, of course, very useful at soaking up Wood Elf fire, and they're good speed, good for pressuring them. Knights of the Realm to provide some cheap anti-large, and the budget Grail Knights, the Knights of the Lionheart, to provide a little bit of encourage and fear. Obviously, this build has no terror, but both the Fey Enchantress as well as Knights of the Lionheart can provide that fear debuff, which is nice. If you need to route Waywatchers fast, or you need to route something like Eternal Guard a smidge faster, it's definitely nice to have that benefit. Now for Alacrity's build, and that's really what I want to focus on here, he's got a pretty cool sort of built around a slow kite, and that's going to be important on a map like this because you really can't stand and fight. You might think that a tree mob can just sit there and tank it, but honestly you'll get cycle charged to oblivion, so you really do need to play a mobile game in my opinion on a map like this on Central Chaos Wastes. That's really what Alacrity's done here. He's got the Glady. She's stripped almost butt naked on the Forest Dragon here. Rather resistant against Bowfire, actually, because she's got both Scaly Skin as well as Physical Resist. But Prey of Anathema is in there for that beautiful Missile debuff and Snare. She also does have her Soporific Breath. As she's on a Dragon, she can really melt some Knights. And, of course, Dragon, while not the most amazing thing against, say, Grail Knights, you do get that magic damage and Poison, which is a good debuff as well as sort of allowing you to bypass the Physical Resist. Besides that, some Sister of the Thorn out here on the edge of the formation, ready to skirmish away at my troops, poison them, of course, debuff them, make it harder for them to pursue the Way Watchers, who are the key unit here. 3 units of Way Watchers, ready to focus out the Knights, really, one by one. And then there's screening units. We've got the Wild Hunters of Kurnus as well as some Wild Riders. Obviously, these units will not trade particularly well with Brettonian Cavalry. Grail Knights especially will just decimate Wild Riders, but even the budget Grails, the Knights of the Lionheart, will do a massive number on them. Grail Guardians, of course, just devastating. So you really got to be wary. These guys are just there to protect the Way Watchers, buy time, and once the match is, or once the Cavalry is cleared out, they are a good tool for wiping out peasantry. A small core of Eternal Guard back here is going to be providing a staggered defense. They can sort of push forward and tank charges for the Way Watchers or for the Wild Riders, helping protect them a little bit, helping support them and sustain melee. They are backed by Spellslinger of Life, who's got a nice little assortment of spells. We do, of course, have the Earthblood for the heals if there's a big mob fight, and not Shield of Thorns, Flesh of Stone. Great for buffing up the Wild Hunters and units like that. Buffs that 40 armor to 100, makes them much beefier against Brettonian troops. And Awakening of the Wood to clear out peasants. Now, over here, I did get a little bit greedy. I probably should have waited a little bit for the Men-at-Arms to get a little closer. But as I do try to push the Cav around the flank here, Alacrity does start pouring fire into these Knights of the Realm and really whittles them down. Prey of Anathema goes down. You can see some of the fire there, a little separated, but these Knights of the Realm have a straight up horrible time, losing about half their HP and most of their, or about half their models and about half their HP very, very quickly. So brutal stuff, really not where they want to be in life. They're just getting pounded on. Unfortunately, that Way Watcher fire there, a bit stupid and just fires into the flank, hitting one model, but these Knights of the Realm are screwed. They're falling apart. The Knights of the Lionheart here pushing through, and this is where Brettonian is really can become brutal. Just the Fan Chants just piling in alongside our Grail Guardians, alongside Knights of the Lionheart, just swarming in and doing an immense number on these Wild Riders. Earthblood is not saving them there at all. Mortis Engine effect, melting those Way Watchers, and of course the Eternal Guard, which is really going to be brutal. In the meantime, that tide of peasants plowing forward, and there's really nothing to stop these guys. If the cavalry tries to stop them, they get countercharged by the Knights of the Realm, and of course the Defender of Fleur-de-Lis, who are just swarming these Sisters of the Thorn down here in the pits, doing an immense amount of damage and forcing them back. Eternal Guard is trying to play catcher here, play back catcher, but really struggling, and that peasant bowfire is pouring in, and of course there's nothing to shut these peasants down. The peasant bows normally, of course, would rout to a stiff breeze, but because there's nothing to shoot them, all the fire and all the fighting is focused on these Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis and the Knights of the Realm and the Grail Knights and all those units. There just is nothing to focus on them. Now over here we do see a Comet of Cassandora, or the Chalice of Potions, going down, whiffing on the Wild Riders. We're doing a bit of a number on these Men-at-Arms, but they are bleeding for it, they are suffering. And as you can see, the casualties are starting to rack up. The peasants continue pushing forward. Now, unfortunately, the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis here do get whittled down a bit. Definitely some efficient trading there from Alacrity. But in the meantime, Grail Knight's still in very good shape, up to 43 kills. They've actually managed to rout off one of these Way Watchers and remove about 2/3 of their models, which is really, really brutal stuff. And we can see the Knights of the Realm here, the crippled ones actually, just surging through and acting as cleanup and online against the Eternal Guard. So brutal stuff there as the Brettonian mob surges forward. Wild Hunters here do block up the Grail Guardians, and this is actually a big misplay on my part. I was not using my Grail Guardians to cleave these guys aside, and instead trying to force path my way through against the Way Watchers. So big misplay. Earthblood fortunately kind of offsets that, but these Grail Knights are not having a good time. All the forces for the Wood Elves are being committed now. Spellslinger is in there. We do see the Wild Hunters of Kurnus dying here horribly, swarmed by Brettonian Knights and trash peasants. And really not able to sustain the fight. But the Grail Knights are suffering. That Withering Fire actually does a bit of damage, and they actually rout. So keep in mind, when a Grail Knights rout, they do lose their physical resistance. That is one of the downsides to their physical resist. They're one of the few units that has a conditional physical resist like that. So they actually do route there, which is not good. Knights of Lionheart here do get Prey of Anathema and Countercharge, which is kind of effective. And these Knights of the Realm, of course, just getting swept aside. Down to 3 models. They're not long for this world. But they fought bravely, 2-1, and massacred. Last one here on 4 HP. You know, he fought for the lady. He definitely did his people proud. So it's a sacrifice worthy of many a ballad. Knights of the Lionheart, though, pushing through. Defenders of the Lead pushing through. I use Lance Formation now just to force that extra little bit of charge speed and acceleration to keep the pressure going. And this is really where Brettonia starts to shine. As the infantry is getting bogged down by my own swarm of chaff, let's just look at these Eternal Guard. Surrounded by a tide of garbage troops, these smelly peasants, the stench just overwhelming the Wood Elf lines. And this is allowing the Knights to just push through. And the Knights, yes, they are badly beaten down. I had some sort of misplays early on. There was some very good focus fire from Alacrity. And despite all that early aggression, we are seeing that, well, the Wood Elves are getting swarmed. Wild Riders here do get a Shield of Thorns from the Sisters of the Thorn, who are still sticking around to their 6 models here. But Knights of the Lionheart are pushing through. The Defenders of Fleur de Lis pushing through, only on 560 HP, and they are still fighting. They are still damaging these Weight Watchers. They're still bogging them down, preventing them from firing, and allowing the tide here to push through. And keep in mind, there's still a lot of peasants. There's still all these men-at-arms. There's still all these archers, these peasant bows just raining hell down on the Weight Watchers, doing insane amounts of work. And now the Grail Guardians are in the pits here, fighting the lady. And although the Grail Guardians are not really meant to deal with dragons, they don't have bonus for large, they don't have particularly strong weapon strength, they are going to do a lot of damage here. The ladies, even with 60 armor added, just doesn't have the best combat stats. We do have the Favor of the Fae buffing these guys melee attack to 78. They're doing some major work there. Weight Watchers do try to pour in some fire, but the pressure continues. Like, look at these Knights of the Lionheart surging forward, just never routing. Brettonian Cav has very good leadership, especially the Regiments of Renown. And they are just breaking the Wood Elves, and that is going to be game for those forces. And yeah, a very brutal and back and forth game. It's a close victory, but it really wasn't as close as one might think. Keep in mind, and this is one of those things, the win condition for Brettonia kind of is to keep their Cav alive in a sense. If you lose the Cav here, you do end up with all this stuff can be terror routed. As long as a handful of Wild Riders and the Glady survive, basically all this can be removed pretty quickly with some terror routes. They won't stick around. So it's really a question of removing all of this. And keep in mind that it's also keep in mind the cost is also important there. You're spending a solid about 9,000 gold on your cavalry or mobile contingent. So if your opponent can get rid of that, all this chaff, while it might look like a massive mob, and obviously they did rack up some kills. You can see these peasants, 19 kills, not bad, honestly. The men-at-arms just whittle down those Eternal Guard over time. But while you can certainly, while you can certainly sort of be worried about these guys, ultimately this trash mob can be dealt with. It's really a question of getting rid of the cav. And so it actually came down, in my opinion, a lot closer than one might think, because while the kill count wasn't supremely high, most of those kills were the Knights. Knights of the Realm here eradicated to a man. Defenders of the Fleur de Lis, Knights of the Lionheart, the Grail Knights, all almost wiped out. It was really just the Grail Guardians and a single unit of Knights of the Realm still around kicking it late game. But it does show just how Wood Elves struggle to shut down this much cavalry on an open map. I think Alacrity had some really good plays there, using his Eternal Guard in a staggered manner to soak up charge after charge and really sort of buying time for the Weight Watchers to keep firing. This is no mean feat. We're talking 70, 90 or so kills between, or close to 90 kills between all three of these Weight Watchers, which is mostly against Elite Cav. Then you have a little bit of damage in there from the Wild Riders and the Wild Hunters of Kurnus, and it's a lot of damage. The cavalry took a beating, but ultimately it's just so much. The peasant mob, of course, just pushing down the Eternal Guard, and just the fact that even if as one knight gets completely annihilated and maybe 2 or 3 of them just get shut down and blocked, that you still have to deal with 2 or 3 other knights that are just pushing through, which is very difficult. And so very well done here in what was a tough situation, I think. As far as changing the build here for Brettonia, I honestly think this is a pretty solid build. If you're going for a Fan Enchantress build, I think this is a respectable composition. You could finagle things around a bit. You could maybe cut some peasants, get another unit of Grail Knights on the field, maybe. But in my opinion, that kind of gives Wood Elves more of a better target. If you dropped, say, a knight, and maybe you could drop like a knight and some men-at-arms and peasants. Maybe downgrade the peasant bows, and you could get another Grail Knight on the field without losing cav count. But I think you want at least 6, maybe 7 cavalry in this fight as Brett's, so something to keep in mind. But for Alacrity's build, I honestly don't have huge critique. It's just a very tough matchup. Arrow of Kurnus isn't particularly amazing. I think maybe I'd consider dropping the Sisters of the Thorn. Obviously, the buffs can be strong, but Shield of Thorns doesn't protect against magic damage, which is what you got to watch out for with Fae and with the Grells. I'd consider maybe dropping Sisters of the Thorn for another unit of Wild Riders, or maybe like 2 more units of Eternal Guard or something. Not entirely sure what I'd do there, but I do think that perhaps it would be worth ditching these ladies for another more fighty unit. But that's just my 2 cents. It's honestly just a tough matchup, and really well played here to Alacrity. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy some Peasant Tide here in the Chaos Wastes. As usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments, and critiques down below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching. I thank Alacrity for the great game here, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.